The sea breeze was the first thing that greeted us as we disembarked from the rusty old boat, the kind of boat that seemed better suited for a lake than the open ocean. We were 4 college students on a research trip, eager to gather data for our marine biology project. The island, unnamed on our maps, promised untouched ecosystems and plenty of specimens. There was Brad, the self-appointed leader of our group, always confident and full of plans. Jenny, his girlfriend, was the practical one, constantly making lists and double-checking our gear. Kyle, the joker of the group, never took anything too seriously. And then there was me, Emma, the quiet observer, more comfortable with a notebook and pen than with the loud, boisterous conversations of my friends. As the boat's engine sputtered and died, the captain gave us a toothless grin and promised he'd be back in a week to pick us up. We waved him off and watched as he became a speck on the horizon, leaving us alone with the island and its mysteries. The island was beautiful, but it had an unsettling stillness about it. Tall, twisted trees lined the shore, their leaves whispering secrets to the wind. The air smelled of salt and something else, something metallic, like blood. We set up camp near the beach, just inside the tree line. Our first few days were productive, filled with cataloging plants, insects, and marine life. The untouched nature of the island was a goldmine for our research, and we were thrilled with our findings. But the island's isolation began to weigh on us. At night, the sounds of the jungle seemed amplified, every rustle and crack a potential threat. It was on the 4th night that things started to go wrong. We were gathered around the campfire, roasting the day's catch and sharing stories when we heard it, a low, guttural growl coming from the darkness beyond our camp. "What the hell was that?" Kyle asked, his face pale in the firelight. "Probably just an animal," Brad said, though he didn't sound convinced. We strained our ears, but the growl didn't come again. Eventually, we managed to laugh it off and went to bed, though I noticed that Brad and Jenny stayed closer to the fire, whispering to each other long after the rest of us had retired. The next day, we found Kyle's tent torn to shreds. His belongings were scattered, and there were deep gouges in the earth, as if something with claws had raked the ground. Kyle himself was missing. We searched the island for hours, calling his name until our voices were hoarse, but there was no sign of him. "Maybe he went to the beach," Jenny suggested, her voice trembling. "Maybe he got lost." But Brad shook his head. "No, something's not right. We need to stick together." As the sun set, we huddled around the campfire, our nerves frayed. The jungle seemed to close in around us, the shadows lengthening, becoming darker and more oppressive. We heard the growl again, closer this time, followed by the sound of something large moving through the underbrush. "Stay calm," Brad whispered. "Don't make any sudden moves." The sound circled us, just beyond the reach of the firelight. We couldn't see it, but we could hear it breathing, a low, ragged sound that sent chills down our spines. Suddenly there was a scream, a high-pitched, agonizing scream that cut through the night. "Jenny!" Brad shouted, but she was already gone, pulled into the darkness by unseen hands. Her screams echoed in our ears long after they had stopped. We didn't sleep that night. How could we? Something was hunting us, something we couldn't see. By morning, Brad was a wreck, pacing back and forth, muttering to himself. I tried to stay calm, tried to think of a rational explanation, but my mind kept returning to the growl, the screams, the blood. "We have to get out of here," Brad said finally. "We need to find a way off this island." We packed up what we could carry and headed for the beach, hoping against hope that we could signal a passing ship or find some means of escape. But the island had other plans. As we walked, the jungle seemed to shift around us, the trees closing in, the path twisting and turning until we were hopelessly lost. It was midday when we stumbled upon the ruins. Ancient stone structures covered in moss and vines, their purpose long forgotten. There was something eerie about the place, a sense of foreboding that made my skin crawl. "This doesn't feel right," I said, but Brad ignored me, his eyes scanning the ruins for any sign of hope. That's when we saw it, a large stone altar at the center of the ruins, stained dark with old blood. The growl came again, louder this time, and the air grew cold. "We need to go," I urged, but Brad was already moving towards the altar, as if in a trance. "Brad, stop!" I shouted, but he didn't listen. He reached out to touch the altar, and that's when it happened. An invisible force struck him, lifting him off his feet and slamming him into the ground. He screamed, a horrible gut-wrenching sound, as his body was twisted and contorted by something we couldn't see. I watched in horror as he was torn apart, his blood soaking into the ancient stones. I ran through the jungle, branches whipping my face, roots tripping me, but I didn't stop. I could hear it behind me, the predator, the thing that had killed my friends. I burst out onto the beach, my heart pounding in my chest, and collapsed in the sand. For hours, I lay there too terrified to move. The sun began to set, casting long shadows over the water, and then I saw it, a boat, far off in the distance. I stumbled to my feet and waved, screaming for help. The boat turned towards the island, and I felt a glimmer of hope. But as it drew closer, I saw the captain's face, the same toothless grin, the same knowing eyes. "Back so soon?" he asked, his voice carrying over the waves. I tried to warn him, tried to tell him about the predator, but he just laughed. "There's no getting off this island," he said, "not unless it lets you." As he pulled me onto the boat, I glanced back at the shore. The jungle was still, the ruins hidden in the shadows, but I knew it was there, watching, waiting. We sailed away, the island disappearing into the horizon, but the horror stayed with me. I could still hear the growl, feel the predator's breath on my neck. It wasn't over. It would never be over.